Okay, today's DIY is working on some rotten wood on a door frame on a side door to my garage. So I've got this rotten area. So I'm going to cut it out and see what I'm dealing with. It doesn't look like it goes up that high, but I'm going to cut it and see what we got to do to replace it. So I'll be cutting it out with my multi-master tool. This is a Fein, F-E-I-N. If you don't have one of these, multi-master tool, DIYers get one. I don't know how I would live without this thing. So this is not the first time this has been repaired. I can see like an old door weather shield here, and so I think I mentioned this house is 25 years old. My wife and I purchased it last year, so just taking care of some things that simple things that have popped up along the way. So yeah, this is, hopefully we'll repair this with, obviously there's water splashing here from the roof, so we'll repair this with something that's going to withstand water. Alright, there it is. Finally got it to chunk out of there. Alright, so this one's going to entail some concrete work too. Some big gap under the concrete. So I'm going to fill all this in with some concrete patch. And then I got all the rotten wood out of here. So then I'll come back in and build this back in with the trim. So I'm gonna have to find some molding. In fact, I think I saw some in my shop that'll match that. So yeah, that's the plan forward. Some concrete and some trim. And I may use some fiberglass filler in there too. Yeah, so my number one objective is to make sure this thing never rots again. So essentially what I'm doing is I just took a chunk of 2x4, pressure treated 2x4, and cut this form on it. And I'm going to stick that in there, and then I've got to deal with this piece of trim here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and jam this in here. I'm going to cover all the ends and open faces, at least the ends. This will be primed. In fact, I may prime this first, and then I'll come back in. Yeah, I think I'll prime it. It'll be easier to prime on the workbench, and then seal all the ends with my marine adhesive seal, and then jam it in there, and it'll be all primed. And then I'll come in and deal with a filler piece out here. So yeah, I'm not a carpenter, obviously. I'm sure there's a better way to do this to make it look prettier, but yeah, my work's not too pretty. But when I'm done, this should never rot out again. So that's the objective. Okay, so my insert piece is primed, dried overnight, and ready to insert. So I'm actually going to be using 3 materials. I think I mentioned this in some of my prior videos. That because I'm a DIYer, I can do this. If I was doing this for a living, this would be impossible to do. So I have this big gap in here that I'm going to fill with this polyester. It's like fiberglass. I started using it years and years ago on surfboard repairs, and it held up real well on surfboard repairs. So Evercoat Formula 27. I'm going to mix up a batch of that, fill all this in, and I'm eliminating all the paths for water intrusion. And then these brick grooves in the brick is another path for water to intrude in here. So I'm going to fill those. It's going to be covered up, obviously, with this. So I'm gonna patch some of this Sika Pro. I've never used this stuff before, but it's ready mix concrete patch Sika Krill. I'm hoping this is going to be easy to work with. This is really hard to work with because you got to mix it with a hardener on a pallet, and it sets up real quick. And then lastly, I'm going to smear this marine adhesive on the bottom, anywhere, the top joint here, the bottom of this, and the side of this with this marine adhesive sealant. And these are all meant to be lifetime applications. So yeah, gonna have to work fast because I know this one sets up super quick, and I want to kind of push this in and get the impression of this pushed into that. So we'll see. All right, so I'm going to apply this 3M marine adhesive first because it sets up the slowest. So this will be this top joint. This underneath is bare wood. And then the bottom. And this stuff is not paintable, this marine adhesive. I'm putting it pretty much anywhere I'm not going to paint. That's ready to go. Yeah, if you want to see how to mix up this Evercoat 27, I've got a couple other videos where I use this on other projects. Yeah, you can watch that. Now the Sika coat, never used this before, looks interesting. Filling in the mortar recesses. This Sika acryl is meant for 1/4 inch layers, so that's why I didn't use it for that back part. Stick a little bit down here. All right, ready for this. All right, that's about where I want it. All right, there it is. All right, there it is. The main piece is in place, all sealed up. I'm gonna, once it dries, this is just primed, so I'll paint this, finish sealing under here, but behind that is plenty of that marine sealant, so it's not gonna, even if I didn't seal that, it's not gonna penetrate past that. So I'm confident there's no water gonna get in there. The Sika acryl that I put on the back to cover these mortar joints, yeah, it looks okay, but I'm still gonna get, when I finish this piece of molding down to the bottom, I'm gonna scab a piece of molding to try to match this. If not, it'll be just one by whatever this is, 1 by 1, put in here and paint it and scab to the outside of that. But yeah, that's never gonna rot, so we're good to go there. Just got a little sanding and painting to do once everything dries up, and then I'll do another video, but I'm gonna fill all this this big gap in here. I've got a couple around the house, around the front porch, so this is going to be my test bed. You know, like I said, I'm not a carpenter, not the prettiest, but took care of the rotten wood, and not going to get any water penetration behind it again. So yeah, good to go. Till next one. Peace out.